Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Business Badassery, the podcast where we're going to talk about how to scale and build and scale a location-independent business that makes you a lot of money, that gives you freedom, and that doesn't require a mountain of work to maintain once you are at a certain level, unless you want to keep going. And my name is Caleb Jones. Many of you probably know me. The other person here, you'll notice that I'm not alone. This is Billie Olds, and I'll let you say hi, and then I'll introduce you. So say hi to everybody.
I'm Billie Olds, just like Caleb said. Some people in his audience call me the Ginger Ninja because I'm the gal behind the scenes who helps get things done.
So Billie, I'll introduce Billie first, and I'll introduce me in case you don't know who I am. So Billie, and this is how I introduce her. She scales companies. Now, she does a lot more than that, but she scales companies. To give you a little example, when I first started working with Billie, I keep saying 4 or 5 years. Has it been 4 or 5?
4.5.
Okay, good enough.
All right, you're right there.
I'm right there. Okay, cool. So when I started working with Billie 4.5 years ago, I had a team of about, I think, me and then 3 people, 3.5. Since working with Billie today, I have a team of about 17, 18 people. And it is I'm in a completely different business scale and model since working with Billie, and that's what she does. She makes people a lot of money because she has business skills that you'll find out pretty soon are pretty impressive. And she follows all of the location-independent Alpha 2.0 business models that I talk about, location independence, high income. She makes a hell of a lot of money, and I like bragging about her a lot. But why don't you add in any other pieces I did not get to your intro? Then we'll go back to me and we'll talk about some other shit.
I think the other important thing is not only do I scale businesses, the thing that brings me the most satisfaction and joy in life is helping people become location independent, whether that means helping them establish a brand new business or leverage the skills they have into a freelance position, whatever it is that helps buy them back their time and allows them to be getting paid at an income level that's sustainable. I want people to be able to travel, buy that house, have a kid's college fund, whatever your goals are. I want that for you. And we find ways to make it happen.
And you're good at defining different definitions in terms of location independence. Let's talk about it really quick, because you have a different definition. We both have the same technical definition for location independence. My definition is 5 flags, traveling the world, doing it going to other countries, moving to other countries. Your not definition, but your view of location independence is very different, which may appeal to a lot of people that mine doesn't appeal to. So describe that, because I like yours is very, you'll see this in a second, guys. She's very different, but you describe what you were saying the other day in the meeting we had about your definition.
There are some differences between Caleb and I, the biggest being that I'm an outdoor girl and Caleb is an indoor guy. So for me, location independence means that if on a Tuesday afternoon, I can take off and take my dogs, jump in a boat and go out on the lake. I can get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go for a 3-hour hike with my dogs. I can schedule my day.
That sounds fun.
I think it is. I think it's great fun.
Get up at 6 a.m. in the morning and hike with my dogs for 3 hours. That's awesome.
And it's great. No one's out there. It's peaceful. It's beautiful. But to me, that's location independence. I can travel and take trips. I can live in different places throughout the year if I choose to. But at this point in my life, I bought a property recently. I'm renovating it, just getting to the tail end of that. So the location independence to me means being able to take trips, vacations, and spend every day as I wish to spend it.
And freedom of time, because that's a big component of what you have. We both have that, where, and I talk about this in my books, where you can wake up every morning, and this applies to both Billie and I, but it should apply to you. You can wake up every morning and decide what you want to do. So if you want to work that day, then you work. If you want to play that day, then you play. If you want to work for a few hours till like 11 or noon, and then take the rest of the day off, you would do that. If you want to sleep in till 11, which I don't recommend, but if you want to sleep into 11 and fart around for a few hours and then work in the evening, then you do that. You work based on when you want to work, not when society tells you it is appropriate to work or how long you have to work to pay your bills. Because I gotta do my 8 to 5 job or else I'll get fired. And then I can't pay my electric bill. So I have to work 40 hours a week. That kind of garbage. So that's another component of this that I don't mention as often as I should. It's in my books and my content, but I don't mention it as often as I should.
And I think that's because Caleb loves working more than I do.
Right.
I love playing. I broke my back about 10 years ago. So I'm really grateful for, the movement that I do have, the abilities that I do have. And I want to take advantage of that physicality as long in my life as I possibly can. So our goals are a little bit different. And as a result of that, Caleb spends more time in the office building empires. I'm a little bit of a selfish cow. I take time for me.
And that's a good difference between us, because you're right. I often forget how much I like to work and or how much I feel compelled to work. I know a strong component of my audience is not like me. Some people are, but a lot of people in my audience are not like me. Like, I don't want to work what you work. Right. So then you should work. But that's why we talk about one of the standards I have for the business models we talk about is that your business should, and you tell me if you agree with this or not, your business, and then we'll get back to introducing ourselves. Sorry. This is what podcasts are all about. Tangent. Yes, it's us. Your business should not require you to work longer than about 30 hours a week. Once you have the income you want, location dependent, 30 hours max. If you want to work more than 30 hours, and I do, then fine, you do that as a decision, but you should not be forced to work more than 30. And it could even be 25 or 20 now I think about it. I use the term 30 because that's swallowable.
It depends. In one of our businesses, I have a partnership business with a friend. In that business, neither of us spends more than 10 hours a month in the business. And we have just an awesome ops manager that we brought on at the beginning because we were systematic in our approach to building that business. So we don't have to spend almost any time in it. And what we do is just executive decisions and maybe doing some pitches in front of large groups of clients who've invited us in.
Yeah. So if you are listening to this podcast and your objective is not to make $1 bazillion a year, as long as you make over 85,000 a year, which I talk about in my content, I consider that a minimum. But as long as if that's not your objective, if your objective is more quality of life, where I want to make 85K or maybe a little more than that, but not much more than that. But I want to work, 15 hours a week, 10 hours a week, 10 hours a month, like Billie does in her business. And I want to just enjoy my life. That's fine. That's not me. But as I've said many times, you don't be me and don't be Billie. Be yourself and do what you want and use these business models to affect the goals that you have for yourself selfishly, like Billie was talking about. Yeah. So let me introduce myself really quick. I think most of you know who I am, but I'm sure there's going to be some of you who have no idea who the hell I am. My name is Caleb Jones. I'm a little complicated. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. My primary source of income for the past 25-ish years as a business consultant or some type of consultant. Over 25 years, you're not going to consult on the same thing you did 25 years ago. I started as an IT consultant that morphed into productivity and time management consulting, and that morphed more into management consulting. It's been my primary source of income. I've had a marketing company for many years that I just closed down about 2 years because the pandemic and replaced that with something else. I also have, many of you know me as the Alpha Male 2.0, Sovereign CEO, and then years ago, Black Dragon. Those are all online companies I have. So one of them is Lifestyle Design for Men. That's one company. That company is Sovereign CEO, how to develop your own location-dependent income. So, and location-dependent business, I should say, because we're not talking about jobs, so that you can be location-dependent. And if you want to move out of the collapsing West, you can. If you want to move out of the country, you can, or at least have an international backup plan. Or like Billie said, just be mobile. You can do all that. And so that's another company I run. I do a lot of things. I work very hard, but that's my background. And this podcast is a few things. And Billie, you give your opinion too. This podcast is to expose you to other business and location independent concepts that you won't get just from me. I work with a lot of amazing people. Billie is one of many. Not one of many. It's a few people, but there are players.
We have a great base of A players that we work with.
A players, right? And it is important for you guys to get exposure to ideas in this realm that are not just Caleb. Billie's example was perfect. Your example was perfect. Caleb comes from a standpoint of working long hours to build a big, giant, empire. Not everybody wants that. And so you'll hear from other people on this podcast that are within this realm of owning your own business, personal freedom, location independence, but in different ways and different aspects that you get from me. Because I am, and if you know who I am, you already know this, I'm a very, very particular type of person. I'm a very narrow, particular type of guy who is very, very, very specific and a very specific type. And you may not be this type. And I know for a fact that I have an audience that likes my content and has for 15 years now. But I know that there are people who come across me who might like these topics and might resonate with these topics, but don't resonate with me, which is fine because I'm a very particular kind of guy. I don't resonate with everybody. So that's the purpose of this podcast, is to expose you to other ideas and techniques and business topics that can help you build your business in ways that you will not be able to get just from crazy Caleb. I mean, Billie, I that's just a piece of it. I know there's some other pieces that you have, but.
No, I think your baseline is correct. This is a platform to give voice to many different ideas, all of which lead to a freedom of location, freedom of time, and an increased revenue stream. The other thing is that almost every person that you will meet through this podcast has multiple streams of revenue.
Yes.
None of us has just one company.
Right. How many do you have now? You have more than me.
I have 5.
How many are you involved in? 5?
I'm involved in 5 right now.
Yeah, that's more than me.
I'm just going to cap it there.
Why not?
But that's why, see, this is the difference too between Caleb and I, is that while we're both very logical, organized people, our brains work very, very differently. So yes. I have ADHD and Asperger's, which means that my thinking can be really out of the box sometimes.
Can you imagine?
It also means that I hyper focus on things. So, we talk about having that time freedom. For me, it's just working within those parameters of what suits my personality, my work style. I get bored. If I were, I don't know, a data analyst, I would be bored to tears if I had to wake up and do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
So it's really, again, about helping you build that individual freedom, whatever that means to you, and having a collective of voices who can help you present ideas and answer questions to get you somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And this is a good example. So I've heard from my audience, actually, you address this because I know what I would say, but I'm going to be a real asshole if I keep talking about this topic. I've had guys in my audience, and some of you watching this podcast or listening to this podcast have said this. Well, but Caleb, I can't do anything. I have ADHD. I've had guys say, but I've had emails, but I have Asperger's. I'm on the Aspie spectrum. So I can't do anything. I can't be successful. I can't make this kind of money. I don't want to tell you how much money Billie makes. I have an idea. She makes a shitload of money, location dependent, doing whatever the fuck she wants, whenever she wants to do it. I mean, what do you say to that?
Love it.
We could do a whole podcast. We won't today. Well, we could. We could do a whole podcast on that. But what? I better shut up because I'll start being really mean to these people. But yeah.
No, honestly, I'm a chick. So I grew up not knowing that I was abnormal, that I was dealing with these neurodivergencies, right? I literally didn't know, because as females, not only are ADHD and the autism spectrum, things that are, they look at that for boys. They don't diagnose that for girls. It's only been starting in the last 10 years. So I was not diagnosed until I was 35 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you have any idea that you were different or had that? Or you just thought you were normal?
No, I knew I was different, but I didn't know how or what was going on. I just knew that I have a hard time relating to people one-on-one. So Caleb and I have known each other forever. He's like a family member at this point. We argue, we bother each other, we nag each other. Our relationship is special, and it's really easy for me to converse with him and be open. But what I found for me is that I really excelled in elementary school, in all the gifted and talented programs and winning all sorts of crap. And then I got to middle school and high school, and I never did a piece of homework.
That
I
is
never
exactly
did
my experience.
anything.
I didn't know
Yeah.
this. That was exactly my experience. I'll tell you mine in a second. But yeah, go ahead.
I
Wow.
did nothing, and I ended up with almost 2 entire years of college credits as a result of being part of the International Baccalaureate program.
Oh my
With
God.
literally, the only time I did things was right before class, or in a 15-minute break.
Wait, you had college. Wait a minute. You had college credit in high school? Is that what you're saying? Oh, so that's
Yes,
the
so
opposite of me. Holy
our
shit.
school had
Okay.
like the International Baccalaureate program. Some
Yeah.
schools call it advanced placement,
Yep.
where you can take college level classes and then you test out and get college credits. You pay for the
Yeah.
testing,
Okay.
but you get college credits. So it allows you to miss most of your first 2 years of general academics.
God.
But
So. Go
but
ahead, go ahead.
I mean, I barely passed high school, but I still got a bunch of college credits, and
Oh my God.
I was checked out. I was not involved in the actual school or educational process. I followed what I was interested in, but I was smart enough to always get by, even though I couldn't. And I still cannot sit in a lecture. I can't
Oh,
sit in a seminar in some boring room where I'm asked to sit on my ass and listen to someone for 6
I
hours.
know that about you. Yeah, I know
It's not
that.
going to happen. It's
I
never
know.
going to happen.
Oh, I know
So
that
I've
shit.
created my work world where if we have a seminar or conference together, we can tie it to a physical activity so that I can still, I can stay engaged. And everyone
Yeah.
else just thinks it's fun and quirky and what a great add-on. But really what I'm doing is pandering to my neurodivergence and just understanding what I need to do to make my work fun and to keep myself engaged and to push myself forward when I'm
That's what
outside of those hyperfixation modes. Because
that's
when I'm
exactly.
hyperfixated, I'm up for 3 days and I will
Oh my God.
dive to the ends of the earth to find answers.
Shit.
But you just need to understand that the corporate world is not established for you. If you're a neurodivergent, it's going to be hard. So why the hell are you staying in it? Let's get you out of there.
Well, no one should be in there. That's my opinion. But yeah.
True.
What's really funny is that I didn't know that about your grades. So from kindergarten for me, from kindergarten, this is our parallel. And then we diverge in high school. But our parallel is, you tell me how close this was to you. So starting in kindergarten to 7th grade, I was a straight A student, literally. If I got back in we went to a private Catholic school. So you get checks and check minuses and pluses and things like that. And so a plus was like an A, a check was like a C, and a minus was a D. And you could get a check plus, which was like a B. So anyway, I never got anything lower than a check plus for those 6-7 years. And then I don't know what happened. I guess puberty happened. And then in junior high, so around 7th grade, I said, why am I doing this homework? This isn't helping. I already know this bullshit. This is stupid. And I immediately went from an A student to a C student. And then in high school, I went from a C student to a D student. And my high school GPA was 1.1 throughout all 4 years.
Okay. Yours is worse than mine, but only by a little, half a percentage point. I had like a 2.4 GPA. It was terrible.
Okay. Well, at least that's passing. At least you were passing. I actually
had to, because I wouldn't have gotten the college credits if I didn't at least test out at a C.
Oh, but see, you had a motivation to go to college, and I did. I thought college was stupid. I'm like, I'm going to go to
I
work.
did too. I didn't. We know this.
You mean you wanted to go to college, but you didn't?
No, I started school. And I went to school for a semester.
Okay.
And then
so I did too.
Then I moved to California to go ride horses for a few years.
So there you go. Right. Yeah. I didn't want to go to college. My mom talked me into taking 2 college courses. I think I mentioned this before. And they're both computer language classes. And I was there for 6 weeks. And the reason she convinced me to do it is because I said, if I don't do homework, the teacher's going to give me a bunch of shit. And she goes, oh, no, Caleb. By the way, my mom, who is a high school and grammar school and college teacher her whole life, so a little biased. But he's like, oh, no, Caleb, when you go to college, no one cares. No one cares you don't do homework. You're just a number to them. They don't give a shit. You can do whatever you want. I'm like, okay. So literally 6 weeks into it, in the computer classes in the back of the room, the teacher comes up at the end of the class, says, by the way, you're missing these assignments. He'll tell you, no, this assignment, that assignment, that assignment. You need to get these in. I'm like, all right, thank you very much. And as soon as he went back up, I got up and I left. I never went back. It was like 6 weeks. So that's interesting, though. We had the parallel of good grades and then dropping off to bad grades later in your evolution as a child. That's interesting. I didn't know that about you. Isn't that weird? Then you didn't go to college like I did, right? You didn't go to college at all. You didn't go back, right? Okay.
No.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about
couldn't.
that, because let's talk about why we know what we're doing and what results we have without things like college and traditional education. So it's interesting. You said you were diagnosed at 35. Isn't that about the time you started your first full-time business, or was it a little before that? Was it 30? How old were you?
It was a little before. I've been self-employed since I started my first business in elementary school, actually.
Yeah. So I started when I was 9. Right. So we're
Okay,
both
yeah. So about
business.
this is wild. Caleb, what
Yeah.
was your first business when you were a little guy?
When I was 9, I sold, I did 2 things at the same year. I sold Greenpeace newspapers because I liked whales. I didn't understand what Greenpeace was, just that they liked whales. I didn't know the political aspect of it. So I sold Greenpeace newspapers, and then I got a little money from that. And then I sold, I went door to door selling Christmas cards to all the moms in the neighborhood. And if you got, they didn't pay you, you could like, this is a long time ago now. We're talking like early 1980s. So they would like you'd send in the order, and if you got X number of points per dollar you sold, and if you could use points to buy like toys or like a stereo, or you could get cash, but then they raped you on the cash. So it would depend on. So I did that, and I did that hardcore, and it was easier because all my moms, the moms in the neighborhood knew my mom. Like, oh, you're Linda, so come on in. And I would just show this book of just Christmas cards. You do this like in September. And I did that. And then later that morphed into like mowing lawns and clearing like lumber. And the main reason I don't know why, well, you and I have similar stories on this, similar motivations. My parents had no money when I was a little kid. They came into money a little later by the time I was out of the house or teenager years. But when I was a little kid, they had no money. And so when I wanted to buy a Transformer or something, or the Star Wars, Boba Fett action figure, my parents said, we don't have any money. Why are you asking us? And they didn't. So I'm like, okay, I guess I got to go do it myself. So that was the genesis of all this. It wasn't like, I want to be my own business when I was 9. I just wanted cash. But I know you were similar, right?
I was 8 or 9, and it was similar, but you lived in a larger community. Mm-hmm. I lived in a town of 700 people.
Oh my
so
God.
Opportunity was slim. And my parents were dairy farmers. So my dad actually, like, I wanted a 10-speed bike in the worst way. I had one of those like banana bikes with big handlebars with like 8 hangers. And
80s,
I hated that
70s
thing.
and 80s.
I freaking hated it. I just wanted a 10-speed to feel like a cool big kid. And there's no way my parents could afford that. It was never going to happen.
Because they couldn't afford it, or they didn't want you to have one?
No, there's no way they could have afforded it. We were dirt.
Oh, okay.
We grew up super, super poor.
Okay.
But what my dad could do is take some of the land that we had, and he built a 2-acre garden. He just like tilled up this land outside of the farm and planted 1 acre of that in cucumbers, and said to me, like, this is yours. I planted this for you. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but you can harvest the cucumbers, and I'll drive you to this processing facility where they will buy them from you. So this is your harvest. You do with it. These are your plants. They live or die. It's on you. I'll show you what you need to do. Show you how to water them, care for them. And so we did. There was a little, I don't even know what the place was now. I can visualize these little conveyor belts and things. I would take my 5-gallon pails of little cucumbers and dump my conveyor belts where they were sorted by size and then weighed. And then they would give me.
Wait. You were how old? Like 8 or 9?
I was 9 at that point.
9. Okay.
I had to be 9.
Yeah.
So they would weigh them and they'd give me a check. And what I learned was that the smaller the pickle, the more valuable it was. So I was, again, selfish little cow. I was out there twice a day picking those little teeny tiny cucumbers as soon as they would grow, because they had the greatest value.
Huh. Why were smaller cucumbers more money? Why was that?
Well, because you need more of them to fill up a jar when you're buying like little high-end gherkins or the little midgy pickles that are so dainty. It just takes a lot more to collect those. So, and the texture is better. I'm a pickle connoisseur at this stage of my life.
I hate pickles. Well, the few foods I will not eat is pickles. It gross me out.
I love them so much. But that's how I learned. I learned that I could make money by tending something in the soil, by taking care of something. I could grow money by putting effort in. when what I really wanted to do was go down to the river or the pond on our property and go play. But I prioritized making the money and then became addicted to it. And the next year we grew a second business. My dad rented me a field, a literal field. He had a friend bring his young cattle over, like baby calves, that lived in this field for the summer. There are 20 some head of them. And my job, I had to walk around the fence line every day, make sure all of my chargers were in their fence and that no one looked sick and that they had salt and minerals and that the fence was electrified. So my dad sold me, he didn't even give it to me. He sold me an electric fence tester and a pair of lopping shears so I could remove any weeds and things that were there. But he made me keep my own books at that point. And I still remember to this day, we charged his friend 8 cents per head of cattle per day for my taking care of them. So I would have to do those books every month. And then I would have to deduct the cost of the field rental and a portion of a payment toward those tools that he'd supplied.
And so you were like 10 or 11 back then?
I was 10 years old at that time.
Yeah.
So I had my cucumbers and that business going.
Yeah, you were doing more than I was. Well, I did stuff sporadically throughout the year. How old were you?
I wanted a pony. I just really wanted a pony, and we had a farm.
That was your thing.
But there's no way my parents could buy that. So
no,
the second year I had a pony.
Yeah, really. My sisters wanted a pony when we were little because you and I are in the same generation. And I remember how much money ponies were in the 80s dollars. I remember, oh my God. I don't remember any numbers. But I remember my dad or my sister telling me how much a pony would be like, whoa, there's no way you're ever going to buy that.
Yeah.
Like buy a car.
And it's the maintenance is the more expensive part.
That too. Right. My sister explained all this to me. I'm like, you want a pony that bad?
But what I did was I segued that. I knew all of my life I wanted to be a horse, like a crazy horse lady, and my parents could never afford it. They could not send me into a competition, to a lesson, anything. I had to just do it on my own. So I, spent my childhood financing that ambition. And as an adult, became a professional equestrian.
Right. Were you in your 30s when you went full-time with your first business? How old were you when you went full-time with your first business?
My first business would have been when I was 22. And I only stopped that when I broke my back, but I had my own business training and competing and giving riding lessons to English equestrians from the time I was in my 20s. And I traveled through the US doing that and working for different Olympic coaches, et cetera, as an apprentice. So,
and this is fun.
Full experience.
Yeah. Rattle off. This is the fun part when I talk to you. Rattle off several different business types or industries you've worked with just in the past few years. Because you have a really eclectic, broader than I do, I think. But yeah, just rattle off. This sounds hilarious. You'll see what I'm saying. Just rattle off a few different types of companies you work with.
It is. So I've worked with venture capital. I've worked with companies that serve government entities, political campaigns, food and beverage, cosmetic industry, and just overall manufacturing and processing. Let's see what else.
Real estate. You're doing real estate now.
Yeah, doing a bunch of different real estate things in different states. And help the founders of Whisper AI to launch their company, which is a hearing aid company that's using computer machine learning and artificial intelligence to improve hearing aid design. So I get to meet some really awesome people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've worked with, I worked with a lot of different companies, but I've tried to narrow it where you've been kind of all over the place.
I like learning.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm getting paid to learn and to dive deeply. And I only take clients on that I know I can hyperfixate on, or that I'm really interested in what they're doing. So I give them a lot of myself, which is where we differ a little bit. I overextend myself a little bit, but I only choose clients to whom I'm absolutely drawn. I will not spend my time in a client that is iffy, and I will absolutely fire clients.
That's the beauty of success. And I didn't get that for years, is the ability to have the balls to fire clients who are giving you real money, like big money, and B, which is like level 2, getting to the point where you can do that and you feel 100% good about it. Because I remember a time where I wouldn't fire anybody because I need the money and they're giving me all this money. So yeah, they're assholes and they're treating me like shit, but it's money. And then you get to the point where like, all right, I can't do this anymore. And you start firing slowly and very carefully, firing certain ones, the worst ones, but you feel awful. You're like, I remember this one. So I'm like, oh my God, they were paying me back then. That's a lot of money, $5,000 a month. They were paying me $5,000 a month and I fired them. $5,000 a month. Oh my God. So level 2 is you fire someone whenever they're being dicks. And you are like, thank God, I don't care how much they were paying. Good. It's like a evolution you have to go through.
It is. It's hard the first or second time. But after that, you realize your value, you realize your worth, and you realize that you left the corporate rat race because you don't want to deal with bullshit. And you don't have to. You can mitigate the bullshit that surrounds you. As long as as long as you live up to your deliverables and your promises and you overperform rather than underperform, you can get rid of those pains in the ass at any point.
And everyone's going to have a different level of tolerance for this. So I know for a fact, my level of tolerance of working with assholes is much broader than yours. Yes. You're a lot more picky than I am. I'll put up with shitheads paying me a lot of money. And I'm like, because I'm very outcome independent. So I'm like, I don't care. There's a level at which I'm not going to dick with it anymore, especially if someone attacks my staff. If that's me, if you attack me, I don't care. But if you get on my staff and cause all kinds of, you're out the door. But you can establish, for you listening, you can establish a baseline that makes sense for you. You can be like Billy and be really picky. And I've worked with a lot of people like you, where they say, it's not just about making the money I want to make. I talked to a guy a long time ago. His name is Jim Gleek. He was, I don't know if he is anymore. He was like a kind of famous make money internet guru years ago. And his thing was, I want to work with only the people I want to work with. Because he was more like you. I'm not working, if they're even a little, if they're bothering me at all, I'm out. I'm only working with people I 100% like. And back then I was like, so what? Now I understand it, but then my tolerance is broader. So you can pick. It's your business. You do whatever you want.
Back in the day, I worked on a charge them until you like them kind of philosophy. So especially in the horse world. And when you get into the very fancy European imported horses, people are dreadful. So I would just charge them 2 or 3 or 4 times as much.
Yeah, fine.
And then I'd subsidize the people that I really liked and charge them almost nothing.
That's pretty funny. That's awesome. Yeah. I never done that, but that's a good idea.
I love doing that. I had clients, the very first national title I won as a horseback person was down in Texas. They flew me and my boyfriend down. We stayed for a week. We were only at the showgrounds like 3 days. I won a bunch of national titles and I charged them a huge amount of money because I just hated the owners. They were dreadful people, but the horses were great and their staff was great. So I just made it a really expensive vacation. Yeah.
Have you ever had trouble getting paid by an asshole when you're charging an asshole or assholes a lot of money? Have you had trouble getting paid?
I've only had trouble getting paid once, and that was actually a client of yours that we took on.
Really? I know who you're talking about too.
You know who it is. They stiffed us for north of 10 grand.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that part. Oh, maybe I did. I forgot. Oh, shit.
Yeah. So,
hey, if it's once,
every once in a while it's going to happen. But you know what? Yeah. Just to not have to deal with those sons of bitches anymore, it's totally worth it. Great. Great. If, I didn't have to give them a ticket to fly to some island. I got rid of them. It's worth it to me.
That's my attitude about firing the clients who are paying you a lot of money, because sometimes that happens. I don't know if you've had that happen, but I've had it happen, at least historically. It hasn't happened lately because I think I'm just better at this. But clients where you get a client or a customer or whatever, that is a big one. They're paying you a decent amount of money. They're not little, but they're awful. And so you're like, if you're not at that point that we're discussing right now, you're like, oh God, I can fire them and free up my life and it'd be so much better. But look at all this money I'd be wasting. But then again, it's worth it because emotional, what do you call it? Emotional capital is just as important as financial capital. You need both. That's one of the reasons I left the United States. Just being there just bugged me. And that wasn't the number one or even the number 2 reason, but it was in the top 5. And this nagging feeling I had in the United States doesn't exist anymore. And that means not only am I happier, but now you could argue I'm emotionally free up to make even more money where I wasn't before. You could make that argument. So
I think that's a really valid argument, Caleb,
yeah,
because your emotional health is incredible. It's just as important as your physical health. And we
yeah.
preach, maintaining a healthy lifestyle in all ways. It's not just make money in your business. It's be happy, be satisfied, have the time and the money for what you want and what you need and what you deserve out of life.
Do
Money
you
is a
have,
part of it.
this is a good question. I have my answer, but you answer this first. Do you have to love what you do? Because I get that question a lot. I know what my answer is.
So I have to at least have a strong like. I won't take it on if I'm not interested. I'm just not, it doesn't matter how much money it is, unless I can
Well,
just delegate it to someone in my staff.
Well, wait, you're
for
already
me
successful.
personally-
Wait, you're already successful. What would you say 15, 20 years ago to that question?
So I've always followed the dopamine. Even though I
Okay.
didn't realize that's what I was doing, I followed happiness and money
Okay.
followed. I found ways of
All right.
making money happen.
Okay.
And it happened for me very organically and with a lot of growth. So I started, once I started putting myself out there and people started recognizing different skills I had, the money was never far behind because my enthusiasm and energy showed. And that's largely what people are looking for, that you buy in to whatever the project is. And by having that emotional buy-in and some connection, it really changes the parameters.
My answer is very similar. So my answer is two things. One is what Billy just said. You have to 100% believe in whatever it is you're selling, even if it's not your thing. So that's the second. So the second component is what I say is you can't hate what you do. Maybe you don't have to love it, because I've encountered entrepreneurs who had successful companies, who made a lot of money, who were reasonably happy. They weren't necessarily doing what they loved, but they didn't hate it. They were at least curious about it. There were aspects they were interested in. They tried to put themselves in those holes, and they believed in what they were selling. So that's those. As long as you believe in what you're selling, even if you don't love it, and you don't hate it. Now, ideally, it's better if you like it. It is better, and I think statistically, your odds of being successful go up if you do like it. But you can make plenty of money at things you don't love, you just like. There's things if I only did what I completely 100% loved, I've said this before, I wouldn't sit here. I would go outside. Now that the weather's getting nice in Dubai, I'd go outside and I'd get my laptop and I would write fiction novels all day long for like 6 hours a day and then just relax if I just want to do what I 100% loved. But I don't do that because that doesn't make money. So then I pick things I really like. Some aspects I love. I could talk about, Five Flag stuff all day long. I could talk about dating and relationship stuff for men almost all day long. I like these topics. These are very enjoyable to me. I don't hate them.
Same for me, starting businesses and talking about how to optimize your business and make things work better gets my juices all flowing. I get really excited about that. But there are things I freaking hate doing, which would include things like returning phone calls, checking emails, the finance stuff. My business partner, I have people in every company that do most of that for me. Because what I can do is I may not like certain components of what I need to build, but I'll build it, I'll get through it. And then once I've monetized enough, I will get that off of my plate as quickly as humanly possible.
That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Outsource this, the things you dislike or not good at. Because if you dislike it, you won't be good at it. That's the other part of this. I've mentioned this. There was a time at which I couldn't anymore. But there was a time years ago where I could have filed my own tax returns. I could have done it. I did that much research on it. And it would have been okay. But it would have taken me, 25 hours and I would have made a bunch of mistakes and I wouldn't like it. So I'll pay someone where it takes them 4 hours and they'll do it right. Even if it costs me $1,000, okay, fine. I don't care. I'm not going to take. I used to work with a guy years ago, long time ago, back when I was doing IT consulting. And he owned a company of about a typical company with an office and employees, about 30 people. And he refused to hire any computer consultants or IT people to help him to manage his computer stuff. He refused because it was too much money. These guys ripped me off. They're like $120 an hour, which I was back then. I'm like, dude. So what he would do is he was the IT guy. He was the owner of the business. And so whenever his employees had a problem, he'd have a little ticket system. And at the end of the day, he'd go around all the computers and he'd fix them. If he couldn't fix them, he would call Microsoft and pay that service. You used to be able to pay Microsoft like this $200 bucks or something. And they would log an instant. They would stay on the phone with you until you fixed it. He would just do that. And it was stupid. The amount of money that guy was wasting by being the computer nerd in his business when he should be out there. The CEO should be the number one salesperson of your business. He should have been out there closing deals and scaling and optimizing. And he wasn't doing any of that, or very little of it, because he's too busy fixing computer problems.
Yeah, you need to strategize, not mend every hole that appears in the fabric of your company.
And he thought he was saving money. So I know you've run into this too. These guys who won't outsource this shit, they think they're saving money. Well, I'm saving money by not hiring this person. You fucking moron. You don't understand what you're doing?
Yeah, you're only saving money if you know how to freaking do it. You can do it easily. If you can knock it out in 10 minutes, okay, fine.
Right. That's different.
And it's non-recurring.
That's not the norm.
That's the thing. It cannot be a recurring, niggling task item that's out there in the ether that the business owner, no, fuck that. Fuck that. You have people to tidy that up for you. And those are the first people you bring into the business. They're your thought partners. They grow with you, but they clean up those messes. They clean up all those loose ends. You can't.
Now, a significant percentage of the people watching or listening to us right now do not have their own business.
That's awesome.
So, no, it's not. It's awful. You need to fix it immediately. Get your own business.
Well, we can help them fix it immediately because that's the most fun thing in the world.
Right. So depending on when I don't know if you guys will be listening to this before or after 90-Day Business Builder is available, but in case you're seeing this before November 7th, I guess you won't be, never mind. Well, maybe we'll do it again, 90daybizbuilder.com. But anyway, what would you say to, there's a decent percentage of our audience who are like this. Smart, motivated guy or gal who has a decent job, but they hate their job. They want to start their own business, but I have no idea what to do. I don't have any skills. I don't know how to pick a niche. I don't know anything. What do you say? I know what I would say, but what would you say?
I would say I would have them go through some exercises and find their interests and find a niche. It's realistically just finding a niche that you believe in and doing a little bit of research to validate your assumptions about this business or this need, and just go on and make something happen. Get off your butt and make something happen.
Yeah, stop making excuses. Because I get a lot of questions like, well, how do I do that? Well, you do this. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, then keep making excuses and just be poor the rest of your life, or be a wage slave in many cases. Because a lot of people out there listening to us or watching us are making decent money as employees. And it's harder. Oh, boy, do I know this from my audience. My God, and people I know in my personal life. It's harder sometimes to get off your ass and do the things necessary to start your own business when you're already making 120,000, 150,000, 80,000 from a good job at a good company. You hate your job. But you're like, well, I got it. I make decent money and my mom is proud of me and I got a cool college degree. And so it's harder for those guys instead of people who are like us, who were fucking poor and miserable and motivated, who are like, okay, I got to get
introverted. We're both also very introverted.
Both of us are introverted. That's true. Right. That's accurate.
Yeah. But it is easy to be comfortable and to be complacent. It's like any other relationship in your world, whether that's your significant other, your partner, spouse, whatever that person is. Yeah. Are you happy or are you just kind of treading water? Mm-hmm. Because if the answer is treading water, you need to make a change because you'll drown. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what that relationship is. If that's your relationship with your job, your spouse, your community, it doesn't matter. If you are ready to make a change, you are capable of making a change. You just need to push the fear aside because fear is largely your only barrier.
Did you know that all negative emotions stem from fear? Did you know that? That's a psychological thing that I believe that I some psychological stuff I think is BS, but that's one of them that makes perfect sense to me. My dad is a psychologist. It's not
they're physically rooted in different parts of your brain, which I think is really interesting. And I can't remember the names of the different places, but I do know that fear is centrally located literally in one part of your brain. Um, and most of us carry that with us, and most of us are never taught that it's okay to address some of these fundamental fears that go against societal programming. And our society, our education systems are built to put cogs in the corporate wheel.
You are built, you are turned out by the societal machine to, as George Carlin said, operate the machinery and manage the paperwork. And that's it, but nothing beyond that. And what society wants you to do, and I talk about this in my books, as you read my books, what society wants you to do is to go out and work, consume, pay your taxes. If you're an American, vote for Democrats or Republicans and nobody else, or the non-American equivalent, and be afraid and or angry at the enemy, the other. And as long as you're doing that, the elites go, awesome. We're these guys are doing exactly what we want them to do. Perfect. They don't want you to think critically. They don't really care if you're location dependent. Matter of fact, they kind of prefer you don't. They don't want, I mean, this is sad to say, but it's true. Society doesn't want a whole bunch of self-employed location dependent people. That's terrifying for people like Joe Biden and Republicans do. It's horrifying. They want people with jobs stuck in their own cities who have to work that job, who are pissed off at some group of people, who pay their taxes, who take the vacation once a year, right, and watch Netflix. And that's not designed to make you happy. That's designed to keep the big machine going. But here's the thing is the machine will keep going even if you individually have your own location dependent business and live a great life. The machine will be fine. Because a lot of people say, especially when we talk about relationship stuff, but in business stuff too, well, what if everyone did this? They won't. It's fine. You do what you want. Society will take care of itself. That's how this works.
Fear is going to hold 98% of people back from ever putting themselves out there that way, whether it's starting a product or a business. Most people will never, ever break through that barrier of fear. And we're here to tell you that barrier is much, much smaller than you think.
Yeah, we should probably talk about that on a future podcast. Do you think?
Absolutely,
yes. Do a whole podcast on that?
I think we should. And we could definitely we have a couple of different guests I'm thinking that would be great to bring on.
Yeah.
To really dive more deeply into fear and the psychology behind it.
Do you think fear is tied to laziness, or do you think that's something different?
No,
because that's another big component today with people. They're lazy.
I think laziness gets mislabeled in a lot of ways. So there's laziness, or something that I deal with is because there are times where I get into I don't know, it's like an action paralysis. I know I need to get things done. I have a big list, but with my ADHD, I really, really struggle. So I know that there are barriers, and to people externally, it might look like I'm lazy. If you're sitting in a building with me 24 hours a day, you're going to think I'm a fairly lazy person, because a lot of my thinking, a lot of my work, I have to do in my head first, and then I put it on paper, and then I make the deliverable. That's just the way I have to operate. So I can see how that would be perceived as lazy, but at the end of the day, I actually output a great deal more than most people. It's just that our working styles are different.
Way more than most people.
Exactly. So
you're many multiples of the typical person.
Well, that's just it. Your value, your output is not predicated on your activity. It's predicated on the output.
Right.
So worry about those outputs rather than the inputs.
Right.
And you'll be much more happy and successful, and you'll get something done.
Right.
But there are people who are lazy, but I do think laziness is one of multiple things. It could be anxiety. It could be depression. There are many, many things that look like laziness. And it's just trying to find the motivation to push you past what that particular barrier is. And I'm going to mute myself for a second because my office has been invaded by very large dogs.
Oh, that's fine.
So I'm going to let Caleb talk for a second.
You don't have to do that with the dogs. They can hear the dogs while I talk. It's fine. Unless it's really loud. It's fine. It's a podcast. It's fine.
I'll let you know. Yeah, I just don't want them to be too noisy, guys. So.
All right. But if you need to, I have a quick topic, a monologue on that if you need to go for a minute. You need to go, or you're all right?
Yeah, let me just pop them outside, Caleb. Take it away.
Okay. All right, cool. So one thing to deal with laziness is, and I've mentioned this before, is that you address all the other factors that laziness can be causing you. And these are the physical factors, so that you actually address these first. So when we bring people on into our upper level coaching programs, we focus on these factors first before we talk about time management and scaling your business, outsourcing, marketing, because this is more of a baseline. And if you have been part of my coaching programs, you know what I'm going to say, but here's the baseline. So it's things like, how many hours of sleep are you getting a night? If you're getting 5 hours of sleep or 10 hours of sleep, too much, there you go. How much alcohol, drugs are you consuming? That includes coffee. How much water are you drinking per day? What's your hormonal profile look like? So if you're a man, you should be checking this at least once a year. I check this twice a year. Your testosterone, estrogen, because men need estrogen, vitamin D, men and women need that, and thyroid. You should be checking all those, and those should be in the proper levels. And if they're not, yes, it's a lot easier to be lazy. What else? Missing something.
Or to feel like you're being lazy. I don't think we should. I have a real problem with titling it as lazy. It's just
I don't.
I do, because I think that there are physiological factors that feed into it.
Which is what I'm addressing.
Like you're identifying.
There can be.
But I let's say lack of action instead of lazy, because those are different things.
Oh boy.
Lazy to me is a willful activity. Like I willfully choose not to do something. Whereas
that's all laziness. You're willfully choosing to be lazy.
Right. But if you're dealing with, let's say if your thyroid function is messed up, it is not you choosing to be lazy. There is a physical precursor that you need to take care of that's going to help you move that hurdle. I think we need to frame that a little differently.
It's a combination of both. You are putting yourself in an environment where it is easier for you to choose laziness. That's how I look at it.
To choose inactivity. To choose inactivity, I would say, rather than lazy.
Well, choosing inactivity means you're lazy.
But this is the point of the podcast, is so that we can argue about these topics, because we come from very respectful places of one another, but our perspectives are really different. So I tend not to label things lazy unless I see people not making an effort. If I see people making an effort, it's an obstacle.
That's lazy.
You just like to label things the easy way. And that's a part of your outcome independence too, is not looking at.
Well, I don't think we disagree.
Or looking at nuance in a different way than I do psychologically.
Well,
I think that's fair.
That's why I said, if you're not getting enough sleep, if your hormones are all screwed up, you're not getting enough water, all these other environmental factors will induce you or put your body in a state where it is easier to choose inaction.
There
you go. Which means you'll be lazy. But you're more likely to be lazy if you have all these things working against you. One of the reasons that I am not lazy, because I used to be. Well, I used to be a long time ago, is because I went out of my way many years ago. And if you know my content, you've read my Alpha Male 2.0 stuff, you know about this, to put all these things in my favor. Hormones, water, sleep intake, meditation, sex, all these things all assist these things. They do, regardless of your opinions about these things. And so if you maximize all these things, now your odds of choosing inaction are lower.
Man.
It's easier to take action. It's a lot easier for me to take action than the typical guy, I was going to say my age, but almost of any age, because of all the sleep that I get, because of the water. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I never have any of those things my entire life. That alone helps. All these things. The fact that I have a testosterone level of an 18-year-old man, literally, because I'm on TRT, all these things together make it less likely that I will choose inaction.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So that's why that's the first thing. I think you would agree with that. I mean, in the 500K accelerator, we do this. The first thing we address are these things. We address these first and get a baseline. So now when you learn business techniques from people like me and Billy or other people, you're more likely to take action on them because that baseline is done.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up for success. It's no different than going on a date and taking a shower and putting clean clothes on before you go to that date.
Right.
You're just preparing yourself to let these opportunities happen in your life or to
Right.
create the opportunities.
Yeah. And I also talk about, we're getting really in the weeds now, but this is what podcasts are.
What we
It's
do.
also about, I kind of lost it. So, what was it? Not your environment of your office. Not, well, I kind of lost it. Never mind. I was going to say, but this wasn't what I was going to say. Also your external environment. So your office where you work. I was talking to someone a while back who runs coaching programs similar to I do for business people. And he was talking about how he was, Caleb, I'll work with these guys, these clients, with these who are, self-employed, location dependent guys, internet entrepreneurs. And they show me their office, and it's like they're in like the washer and dryer room where the washer and dryer is, and this little tiny desk, there's clothes and papers stacked up, and they're kind of in this little huddle. And it's like, what the hell are you doing? That's not conducive to a positive work. That's not conducive to something that would choose you to work. To be excited about going to work, you should be like excited to go to work every morning as best you can. And that also has to do with your work environment, your external environment, how much light, all that stuff. So it's not just internally in your body, it's also externally in your external environment. So that's another thing you got to address, all these things. And then if you read books on things like willpower, like there's a book called Willpower Doesn't Work. And that primarily the message of that book is, right, instead of focus on willpower, focus on your environment, your internal environment, and then your external environment. Suddenly it's a lot easier to take action on this stuff. I was even considering at one point having two computers, one with, well, I've kind of done this now. There's no games or anything fun on my computer, this laptop here that I work on. And I did this several years ago where all my games and my movies and crap like that are in a separate computer in a separate room. So I'm not tempted to do that. Things like that.
Yeah, I do the same. And here's one tip I'll give to everyone. When you're remodeling your house, get the doorknobs put on your office door before you need to start using your office.
You didn't have a doorknob? I don't get it.
No, I don't have a doorknob on the office door, so my dogs keep coming in and out.
That's when the dogs can come in. Fucking dogs,
yep.
Man.
So that's I was working for a while with no office because we tore the ceilings out of my entire house.
I know that.
So I can speak from painful personal experience. What a huge difference it makes to get back into a space that makes you feel good. And that it doesn't need to be anything fancy. I put some plants, a painting, some paint on the walls, and a new desk. The doorknob will be great, so I don't have to keep shouting at my dogs to leave. But you can overcome these obstacles slowly. It doesn't have to be something that you do all at once. But take a look at your environment. How can you improve that space where you work? How can you improve your water consumption? For me, I have a special cup that I really love. He has this tankard. We each have our special vessel, and that's the vessel we consume water from.
Yeah.
It's a really weird thing, but buy a vessel that you like and that you enjoy drinking out of. And
it's really not plastic.
Yes, that's not plastic. Increase that hydration, but start looking around your house and your life and think of these little tweaks that you can make to help set you up to take action.
And if you don't have dogs, if you live with another human, as I do, Billie's lucky enough that she lives alone, although with big dogs are almost like people. But if you live with another human, I live with my wife, then you have to set up do not disturb time. Unless you live with someone who is very introverted and you never see that human being, and they're on the other side of the house. My daughter's kind of like that. So when I live with my daughter, I have to do this. Well, a little bit.
That's the kind of spouse or a partner I'd want to find. But I always end up with people who want to spend way too much time with you and be in your space.
Because opposites attract. You're going to be attracted to a man who's the opposite of you. That's who I married. I married my literal diametric opposite. And I love her to death, but she's my literal diametric opposite, which means she's extroverted and wants to talk and hang out all day. So I said, sweetheart, I love you. I had to do this. I had to reinforce this a few weeks ago. From 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. is do not disturb time. Unless you're bleeding or dying, you got to leave me alone. You can't come downstairs and bother me. Wait till 4 and then whatever you need, or before 10, but from 10 to 4, 6 days a week, as I work 6 days a week. There, and you'll have to do that if you live with other people. Some of you young guys, live with parents or grandma. Same thing with her. Some of you guys live with girlfriends. Some of you gals live with needy guys. Okay, fine. You got to enforce these kind of things. Some of you people, God forbid, have little kids or teenagers. Teenagers don't bother you, but little kids will, because I raised 2 kids.
Oh,
My kids
I'm allergic.
I know you're allergic to children. Yes. I love kids, but I wouldn't want them now. I'm glad I had them when I had them, even though I had them too soon.
I love having nieces and nephews and friends with kids.
Yeah.
I just don't want those vile creatures living with me.
You just pissed off half the audience. She doesn't like kids. She has dogs.
He likes big
I
dogs.
had kids because
having fun. And well, it's different when you're a woman, because my aspiration was to ride horses professionally. And you can't be watching some throwing up, pooping, screaming parasite and having to, you have to be reliant on somebody else. And I've never wanted to be in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or where I would get, the woman often gets saddled with the kids if a relationship goes south. And I was never willing to give up my freedom.
Yeah. But if you married a guy and had kids, that wouldn't be you. He'd be taking care of the kids. Right.
Yeah, he'd have to, but he'd also have to be the one pregnant, because I wouldn't go through that crap.
You'd be the alpha chick, and he'd be taking care of the kids. Because I know couples like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
my business
I know
partner's
couples like
dynamic is like that with her husband. She's the breadwinner and he's the stay-at-home dad.
Yeah, I know a lot of more and more couples like that. I know a lot of couples like that, where the wife is the one taking care of business and it's the stay-at-home dad. Yeah. It
would be far too boring to stay at home for me.
But
to each his own, and this is what gives us the flexibility, though, to say these ridiculous things and to live our persnickety lifestyles.
Right. We have the freedom to do these things because we have location independent income through our own businesses we own and control. So those are the 2 factors. This is a good thing to end on because we both have to go soon. But a business you own and control, not a job. Well, Caleb, I have a location independent job. You don't control that income at all. At all. That can be taken from you at any time. You have to. I have a brother who has that, so he'll go places, but he has to pretend he's in the office. So he has to have his phone on him all times. He has to pretend he can't do anything. He has very little freedom. But that and it's location dependent. So if you have a job or if you have a business where you're required to go there every day, physically be where your clients or customers are, or wherever, or your vendors or whatever, you don't have that freedom. It's both. So just so you guys are clear, Billie is not my guest on this podcast. This is her podcast too. This is Billie and Me's podcast. And over time, over the podcast we do, we'll have other people on here. Sometimes the 3 of us, sometimes one of us will have another person, again, to give you those other perspectives and things like that. And we'll do this. We'll try to do this once a week. That's our objective, right? Isn't that our objective once a week? Yes. Right.
Once a week.
Yeah. We'll try this once a week. And it's focused 100% on business, not other topics, as you guys know. We'll stray it. We just strayed a little bit. We'll stray a little bit other topics too, because it's a podcast.
We always stray a little bit. That's just our style. We diverge, but there's always a few nuggets of gold in there, we hope. Yeah. And again, we want you to hear dissenting voices. We're not going to have guests on this show that simply agree with us. That would be boring for us. It would be boring for you, and it wouldn't be very enlightening. So
and it wouldn't be against the point of this podcast. Right.
Exactly. Our goal is for you to hear as many different voices and as many interpretations of location independence as we can present to you.
And business styles, personality styles. So you could probably tell already, just in the last hour, Billie and I both have location independent businesses, but the nature of her business and businesses is very different than mine. And the way she works is clearly different the way I work. So you can still have a location independent business, but customize the way you want it, which is kind of the recurring theme for today, the way you want it, not necessarily the way I would do it or the way I would even tell you to do it, the way you want it. As long as you're making money, it's location dependent. And you don't have to work too many hours to maintain the income unless you want to. Those are the 3
and let's be honest, it doesn't have to be location independent. For some people, that might not be practical.
Yes, it does.
Not for everyone is that practical. Let's say I have a family, I have kids. It might not be practical for everyone. So just know that we want you. We believe it is. We believe it is.
No,
but a lot of you
still have location dependent income if you had little kids, because at least then you have the option if something happens, you need to move your family. So you're still better off. So that's a good point. We can talk about this on a podcast, but
we'll have to in a different podcast.
Yeah, if you don't need the location independence, you should still have it because you may most likely want it later in life. Well, I don't need to move out of my city. I have little kids. I have a wife. I love my city. I love my country. Are you always going to have little kids? Are they going to stay little forever? Are you always going to want to stay in that city? Nothing's ever going to change with your city. I'm from Portland, Oregon. Talk about cities changing. It's like a 180 in the last 20 years. So even if you have these things, you still want it as a backup plan and as a mobility plan and as a long-term security plan for yourself, even if you don't need it right now.
Right. It can be something you work toward, and we help you take those steps toward building.
True.
But it doesn't mean that you have to take that full leap right now. And you'll still get good content, but you'll get good content from us either way. Wherever you are in your life, our goal is to give you these varying opinions and insights that will help you find the right path, because our opinions, at the end of the day, don't matter if it doesn't fit your needs.
Well, these are your opinions, but I'm giving you the word of God when I give you my opinions.
I'm an atheist, so good luck with that, Buckaroo.
I'm not quite an atheist, but I'm close. I'm an agnostic, and I'm on the verge. The line's right here. I'm right there. We can talk about that too. All right. Well, thank you, ma'am. It was awesome.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Caleb. Can't wait to get to know our audience, and see you on next week's podcast.
Cool. See you guys next week. Same time, same bat channel. Have fun.
See ya.
Bye.